All right. So on today's episode, we had Stefanie Reichman, and she is do you want to explain what she does?
Well, she's an engineer who currently works for a major technology company called Bluebeam. Mm-hmm. And one of the interesting things about the episode really is her journey as an engineer and how she's quote unquote pivoted to other aspects. So not just design engineer, but really working for a technology company, still in the technical field, but not doing design work per se. So the story really today is how you can pivot out of your normal engineering job. So and it really expands to anybody, even yourself. Like you're now starting your career, right?
That's scary.
Well, you're just graduated high school.
Yeah.
So congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
And so you're 18 years old. You're deciding on your career.
Deciding which career I want to pigeon my whole self into.
Pigeonhole. Yeah. So do you know what a pigeonhole is?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Isn't it like you get stuck in one spot?
Exactly.
You can't really change.
That's exactly what a pigeonhole is. So you might feel
it has something to do with a pigeon.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's a like a what's the word? A phrase that we say, right?
I don't really know where it comes from.
A literary device, if you will. But anyway, so the point is really, I don't know where it comes from, actually. Do you know where it comes from?
I don't. This is something to Google. ChatGPT.
Yeah. You're still on ChatGPT? So that's a little bit about what the episode's about. If you're interested in learning more about that, then we want you to check out the episode, of course. But there's so much more in this episode, and Stefanie was just a joy to listen to.
It was
a lot of fun. And check it out. Here we go. My name's Andy Richardson, and this is the Enhance AEC podcast, and this is our producer, Madeline. I've been doing this for 28 years, almost, and the podcast for almost 2 years.
Really?
For real. And so we want you to check out our podcast, the Enhance AEC podcast. Let's get started.
Welcome to Enhance, an AEC podcast, where we learn the why behind AEC professionals so that you can learn your why.
Hey, Stefanie, welcome to the Enhance podcast.
Thank you so much, Andy. I'm so excited to finally be here and get a chance to have this conversation with you. We've exchanged so many LinkedIn messages that I feel like maybe we already know each other, but I'm excited for this opportunity. So thank you for having me. Yeah,
definitely. And really the first time we've met each other, albeit virtually in this case, but we've never really talked. So good to finally connect with you.
Yeah, likewise.
So Stefanie, I have a curveball opener for you, which since this is our second take, not much of a curveball anymore. But
I can
anyway, yeah. So when you were a kid, you talk a lot about career advice, and you give a ton of advice. I love your platform. But one of the things that got me thinking about is, what did you want to be when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Yeah, I always kind of wish I had like a great answer. Like I wanted to be a doctor or something, an engineer or something. But I think I always wanted to be a boss. And for me, what that meant was flexibility, being in control of my own destiny. I think that control has always, in my career, has always been really important to me. So I wouldn't say that I had like a specific idea or job, but I had like this concept of what I wanted out of a job.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Well, how has that, do you feel like that you've met that in some way with your career, or are you still looking?
Yeah, I feel like that could be a very interesting clip that maybe won't show me in the best light. I think that definition has changed a lot. I think growing up, I saw a lot of really powerful decision makers around me, and I think I was always wondering, like, what would it feel like if I didn't have to respond to people in that way. Like I was my own boss. I could make my own decisions. And I think as I've grown and matured and explored entrepreneurship, which I'm doing now, I've realized that everyone has a boss. And so that like feeling and that thought of like, I don't respond to anybody. I don't like, I am the ultimate decision maker. Like that is incorrect. And so like that perspective has changed a lot. And I think it's brought in a lot of the importance of like, what are my values and what is important to me? And I feel like I'm still on that journey of like figuring out what those things are, especially like as I've matured in my own life, in my own career as a mother and a wife, and what do all those different titles mean to me, and how those definitions have also shifted as the seasons of my life have shifted. So it is definitely an ever evolving. I will never reach what I thought was the boss when I was younger, but I'm also okay with it being a journey that I'm constantly on. So
yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. As an entrepreneur myself and owner of the business, you know, that was similar. I mean, I don't know that I felt that way, you know, as a child, but you know, you think, okay, I'm going to be the boss, but then you realize now I have 15 bosses, you know, because really, and in some ways we are, you know, in a positive way, because we are really servant leadership to our employees, and even our clients are our bosses. So you have 100 bosses too. So you don't have just one anymore. Now you have 115. But so that's good. And it seems like this idea of a journey is something that you probably share with your. I guess. Maybe we should get into you're more than an engineer. We'll jump straight into that, right? And
sure.
Because I think you have like clients that you work with, and you advise. You're a mentor to people that are working on their engineering career. So, do you share that concept with them about this journey? With, I guess, do you call them clients, or I don't know, the people that you work with?
There's definitely a couple different layers to it, so I'll try to peel back a couple of it at a time. So I started creating content on LinkedIn about 2.5 years ago. A lot of that stemmed from this really strong desire to help other people that had been in similar career situations than maybe I, and just wanting to do something positive now that I found myself in a really happy place in my career, which I had never been before, which is important. A professional civil engineer, and worked in construction, worked in an engineering company, and then kind of found myself in tech in a role where I was genuinely happy, which was so different and new as a concept for me. And I figured, I'm not spending all this time frustrated at home now. Let's do something positive with this extra time I have now found myself with. And a lot of that kind of pointed to, let's start creating content. I'm glossing over obviously so many different parts of like what was my journey of you know, overcoming fear and like cringy and all that stuff, and have really taken on this persona and this concept of like, it is a journey and there's no destination, it's just a journey, and that's okay for me. Now, being that I've done that, I consistently got the same question of like, how did a civil engineer go work in tech? And so as I consistently got that question, I was like, oh, I didn't realize I was special and that this is interesting, but if it's interesting, let's dive into that. Now, that kind of took me all different kinds of ways of like, should I be doing resume reviews? Should I do coaching? Like, what is the best way to help people in their careers? Now, I still work full time. So doing coaching has always been like a very challenging thing for me to do, but that drive and motivation of like wanting to help people has always been there. So now it's been finding out like, how can I do this on a more scalable approach? One of the ways that we've done that is through AEC Tech Jobs, which I'm a co-founder of, which is essentially a job board specifically for roles in the AEC tech world. So many amazing companies doing so many amazing things, so many people from the industry or from tech that want to be in this industry. How do we connect those two pieces together. And so AC Tech Jobs is really a piece of that. Now, more than an engineer kind of stems out of everything. My own journey, my own definition of success. I wanted a new hat for myself, and I didn't feel like an athletic brand needed more of my business. And so I went online and was like, I want to create a hat. What is a hat that speaks, what's a slogan that speaks to me, of me in this journey, this growth that I'm in? And it kind of morphed into this more than an engineer. I went and made the hat myself. Other people saw it, were like, wait, that's pretty cool. How do I get that? I ordered a bunch of hats to my house and sold them for 6-ish months, which was really cool. I'll never do it again. And then recently launched a partnership with RFI Outfitters, where they actually took the more than an engineer concept and put like a graphic to it, which is now on, there it is, with it's a little beaver, which the beaver is actually a little Easter egg. My alma mater's mascot is actually a beaver. I mean, beavers are also like builders or whatever, but it was also my college mascot. So
there's a little layer behind that, right?
Yeah. So it was fun to be able to do that, and the sweaters are still out. You can go grab one. If you get a dark green one, then we can match. And yeah, I think that all has come together in this really crazy journey for myself. Like, it's trademarked. I have a trademark. How crazy is that? So yeah, I think I don't even remember your question, to be honest. It has morphed into many different answers.
Well, this is perfect because, I mean, we wanted to get into all of this, and no, that's awesome. I mean, you have a lot of things happening. It's exciting. But the main point of it was, talking about your quote unquote clients or people that you advise, and do you tell them about your journey, is that a big part of your how you train them and teach them? Because I think they have a lot of questions about, like you mentioned, the resume and what should I do? I want to get into AEC Tech. It seems like there's a lot of challenges in people's careers, especially. And by the way, this is the AEC This is an AEC podcast enhanced. So we talk to architects, engineers, contractors, and people that are looking over the fence at us. But the point of that is there may be other people that are going through those same struggles. So I guess that's really what the question is getting into, is what are the things that you talk to about with the people that you advise that you've discovered through LinkedIn and other places?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different pieces that I think often get skipped. I think very often engineers especially will find themselves in a place of immense burnout, and then it's that feeling of like, I'm just going to throw my hands up and go back to school and be a veterinarian or something. So I've heard like those types of conversations, and I think oftentimes it's like a bit of a realignment in terms of the values that are missing. So what is it about your current role or your current company or both that is just not aligning with you anymore? Why are you burned out? Is it a specific task? Is it your manager? Is it the company? Is it the type of work? Are you not challenged enough? So I think very often it's the conversations around that, and really making sure that the person is like in true alignment and understanding of like what is not working. So I very often go back to my own experience. I was working for a general contractor. I was really burnt out. I didn't really know what I wanted to do next, but I did know that it had to be remote, and I was not willing to budge on that because I was a new mom, and like that was the stage of life that I was in. It had to be a fully remote job, and it had to be a company that I was excited for, and a manager that I was excited about too. So which all of those things kind of directly tied to past experiences that were unfortunately negative in my case, where I was like, okay, in the past, I've worked for companies that didn't offer me this level of flexibility. That was problematic for me and my lifestyle. So now I'm going to prioritize that. I am okay now with giving something up. I'm okay with taking a pay cut if that's what it needs to be, or I'm okay with taking, you know, a drop somewhere else. It is always a give and take, but I think having that strong alignment of being like, this is what I must have, and if that means that my job search is going to be extended, like, I am okay with that, because these are the decisions that I'm making for my own life, for my own values. But I often see that, like, it's almost like the decision paralysis, or like the over analyzing of what's going on really stops someone from getting to that place where they can say, this is what I need, and this is what I'm not willing to budge on, and this is why it's important to me. And I think when a person gets to that place where they're just so confident in what they're looking for, that's when they can kind of start actually like figuring out how to get it. But if you don't really know what you want, then how can you realistically go out and get that job?
Yeah. And it's interesting because, I mean, the people that you work with are engineers, so they should apply that same logic probably to their career. But I think oftentimes we don't, right? We don't apply that logic and look at it as a problem-solving thing. But it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing, is you're saying, okay, let's take a step back, let's look at the facts, and let's deal with that, right?
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of being so exposed to so much information now more than ever. You are able to go on TikTok, for example, and see what this what this finance person is making, and you're like, well, and I certainly had this, like, when I graduated, I thought that I was gonna be offered 6-figure salary offers, and I didn't, and that really sucked. And I think now you see all these people that are making 6 figures right out of school, and you're wondering, like, why is that not happening to me? Did I pick the wrong career? Should I go to tech because there's more money there? And there's just like this constant stream of all this information that has to get ingested, and then the person's also feeling maybe not 100% in their role, and now you're getting this kind of background information of like, you picked the wrong career, you made all these mistakes, and then suddenly, like, it's very easy, I think, to spiral in like, what did I do? So yeah, those are the modern age that we're in, and social media that's an interesting take on it, the impact that's having, because I didn't have that information when I got out of school. It's just like you didn't really know what everybody was doing. You just did your thing. So we have more data out there, and it does impact us how we think. And in some ways it's good. I mean, you can use that information to your strength too, I would think, right? No, for sure. I mean, I think everything's a positive. It's a positive and a negative. It's two sides of the same coin, for sure. It's the world we live in now, and that's a beautiful and amazing thing. Like, the barriers for so many decisions and so many things have come way down. There's so many jobs that I didn't know about that I've learned about from social media. Like, oh wow, that's a really cool job. Like, could I do that? Is that interesting for me? And I've recommended roles to people based off of things that I've learned on social media. So I do think there's some really wonderful things about it. I think it's always just like taking a step back and realizing that, like, not everything you see on social media is always the truth. We both post on LinkedIn, so I'm sure that there's posts that we post where, we share a win one day, and maybe that day we're not feeling like the biggest winner. But these are kind of some of the things that we do. Social media is a highlight reel. I certainly don't believe every 20-year-old that says they're making multiple 6 figures, but that is the world we live in. So yeah, that's true, and you got to take that for what it's worth. So you mentioned a few words there: the stress, the cringe, the fear. What happened with your engineering job that was all of those things? I would say the cringe came more from like the idea of posting content. Okay.
It was more the content side, yeah.
Yeah, it was more on the content side. I think on the engineering side, I had a bit of a mismatch in terms of like the expectations that what I thought I would do, and then just like being able to be trained correctly. I also didn't work as an engineer, I worked as a APM, an assistant project manager for an engineering company, which is a really interesting place for a new grad to go because you are managing hours of a senior engineer who does not want their hours always managed. So I do think that that's a lot of like relationship building, a lot of communication that I had to learn on the fly of like, how do I connect with someone who's 20, 30, 40 years my senior, and they don't really respect me because I haven't really given them a reason to, because I literally just graduated from school. And my manager then quit very shortly after I started, not because of me. And so, yeah, I think it was a bit of a perfect storm for not a recipe for not success.
There was a lot of stress. I mean, that was
Yes.
one of the words, and fear. So,
Yeah.
I guess the stress and fear. I mean, were you able to overcome that? Did you eventually? Did that push you out of that job and into your current job?
Yeah, I mean, I think burnout and general like fear around careers has always been really interesting for me. I think something when I joined the workforce that I really held on to very tightly is we are at-will employees, meaning that you can leave whenever you want and the company can part ways with you whenever they want. I think that has given me a lot of confidence over the years in just the way that things run and the way that things operate and how I need to play within the corporate playing field. Because in any role, I always find that it is important, it's critical. You have to essentially, like, when you feel these stages of burnout, have these conversations with either your manager or probably start with your manager and whoever else you feel like is right and makes sense and can assist, because you owe it to yourself to first figure it out within the company. So in every kind of role that I've had where I've experienced any type of layers of burnout, of confusion over my role or frustrations, I've always made it a point to be very vocal about it. And just have the conversations like, this is what I'm missing and this is what I need. Can you help me? And however that's received is almost irrelevant to the fact that like I went and had those conversations, and then if the company says like they can't meet me where I need to be or where I need the company to be, then the onus is on me to decide what I want to do. Very often for myself or in my own experience, like that has often meant that it's time for a new job, because why would you stay in a role that's stressing you out? I don't know, but I very often talk to engineers, people in construction that have been at their roles for like 10, 15 years. I just met with someone last week who said they didn't have bad days, they had bad years, which is really hard. I've personally never, I commend people who are able to come into work every single day for months on end when things are so challenging to them. Personally for me, I find that really hard. I wear my emotions on my sleeve and I've not been able to stick it out for that long when I'm unhappy. But I've always made it a point to have those conversations with people to say like, this is first having that internal conversation with myself, what's not working, what do I need, and then being able to relay that back to the company and kind of try to see if there is a solution here.
Yeah. And then, so what happened next in terms of how did you get to point A to point B? You had a conversation and did it work or did it not work and so forth?
Yeah, I mean, I think it always works to a certain degree. I think there's always that point in people's careers where you feel it in your gut and you know it's time. I left the construction company. I was pregnant. I had my son and then didn't go back to work there after. And it essentially was just like this huge life shift that at some point you just start looking for something new to just overcome that. So
yeah. So you gotten to this point, you felt like you wanted to change and you changed. So and that's really what you teach that's what you teach other engineers to do, right?
I think it's so important for engineers and anyone really to realize that like your life and your career, and by extension your career, your life is entirely in your own hands. I wish that was pieces of advice, as simple as it sounds, that was shouted from rooftops more often, because I very often in my schooling and my early career heard like, you need to put the company above all else, and you have to put your projects above all else, and you need to if that means that you need to work 80 hours a week for months on end, then that's what you'll have to do. And while I think that in some cases part of that advice is fair and valid, I think it's been taken way out of context way too many times, and to the detriment of so many young engineers that think that this is just normal and it will get better and I just need to stick it out. And fact of the matter is, by sticking around, we're enabling companies with this type of bad behavior and saying that it's okay and I will put up with it, when the companies don't deserve that. I think the last 6-ish years have proved to us that companies don't really have as much loyalty to us as employees have to their employers. I haven't heard of engineering companies giving out gold watches in a while. Maybe someone listening here can send me a picture of the gold watch they got. But that doesn't really seem to be the case anymore. And so I really wish, I wish in general, anyone that listens to this and anyone who kind of interacts with my content, that they really realize that you have all the power. If you want to wake up and do something else, you can do it. It'll take time, it'll take effort, it will take dedication, but you can do it. And I think that's a message that it just isn't shared enough.
Yeah. And as an employer, what would you tell the employers they need to do? Because if the employees all figure this out, what you just said, then the employers are going to have a hard time retaining employees, right? So how should we, what advice do you give to employers to really retain employees and help them succeed in this market?
It's such a great question. And I think it's firstly understanding that we've been having a retaining problem. Like, it hasn't been a labor shortage issue for a while. It has been a inability to retain talent, and having that mirror up and realizing that, I think, is really important. I've been in situations and in conversations where companies say, oh, it's a very natural or a very normal number of turnover that we have here. And while, yeah, of course, like, turnover is always normal and healthy, and I totally understand that, I think there's very often just a complete lack of understanding of why the turnover has happened. I think that there's always signs when someone departs a company, and it is on the employers to not skirt past that. Why are people leaving? Are they leaving because they're getting paid better elsewhere? Is there, if you're not able to be competitive on pay, what are you able to be competitive for? Like, what is the reason why someone wants to work at X company? And don't say a pizza party. Those don't work. We all know that. And I love a pizza party as much as the next person. But I think that the problem is that a lot of these pizza party type endeavors are often ones that are a little bit too late. I think when you do have top performers at companies that come to you with concerns, take them seriously. It's as simple as that. The first thing I said was, if you're unhappy, I didn't say you should write a book about your unhappiness and your grievances. I said you should talk to your manager about it. Mm-hmm. And I think that has always been true, and like, it has always been something that I believe so strongly in, because I always think that people can't read your mind. I wish they could, but they can't yet. And so if there's something specific that you want, you have to go and, put on the big girl pants, as I tell myself when I have to do something hard, and have that difficult conversation, because without it, you're not even giving the employer a chance to be on that journey with you. And so if you make that kind of social contract with them to, like, go in and tell them what you need, and then the employer says, yeah, I hear that you want, more money because, you've been taking on some bigger projects and whatever the situation might be, if it's valid, of course. And they say, yeah, I hear you, but I don't really care. What is that telling the employee? And so why should the employee stay there, take on more work, spend 10 to 20 extra hours a week, and when they think they're going to get rewarded for it, they're met with, oh, here, I'll take you to lunch and let's table this for 6 months.
Yeah.
So I think it's at that point that the conversation around how do you retain that engineer, it's in that moment right there where you've completely lost them and completely disregarded the whatever ask that they've made of you.
Yeah, the goal is you got to listen to the employee, and then, we need to communicate. But engineers, we don't like to communicate that sometimes, right? What do you think about that? Do you think that's a valid statement, or is that a caricature of engineers?
I don't think it's a caricature. I think it's a mold that we've placed ourselves into, and I think the engineers that are able to step out of that I'm a bad communicator mold are the ones that are crushing it and will continue to crush it. I think in this age of AI and everything else that's currently going on, it's your ability to be smart or to execute on work is table stakes now. Who needs the A+ student who can regurgitate a textbook when Claude or ChatGPT can do that for you now? But those tools can't be personable and ultimately, or be communicative. And those are the types of things that the clients will want. They want someone who's going to pick up the phone when they call. AI isn't really doing that yet, but
Right.
It's still a very different experience. And so I do think that we've set up a lot of young engineers for failure when we tell them we are bad communicators. We're not. We just need to learn, just like anything else. No one is born knowing how to ride a bike. And in the same regards, no one's born. Maybe some people are born being excellent communicators. I don't know. I haven't met every baby in the world, but I know that for myself, I've been honing in on the whole thing for 15 years. I think now I'm an excellent communicator, but I still have so many things to learn on my path to being an even better communicator.
Yeah, and I'm on a journey too, just like you are, and just like your mentees are on a journey to communicate better. I'm an engineer as well, and I'm still trying to get better at it and I'm a leader of a team, so I have to communicate to them and listen to their needs when they bring concerns to me, and that's part of communication too, is just listening. But I wish I had that advice 27 years ago to really learn how to talk to my boss and say, I really am not happy with this situation, and I actually didn't give him a chance to fix some things, and so that's not fair to them if you think about it. You say I'm burned out, but yet, well, you didn't talk to anybody about it, you just quit. So that's great advice, and but sometimes you do get truly burned out. How do you know when you're really burned out or really stuck and it just isn't going to work? It probably starts with that conversation, but let's say that conversation just didn't work. How do you know that you're stuck or you're burned out?
Yeah, I think the term burnt out can look different for different people. For example, I know for myself what burnt out looks like, or I don't really call it burnout anymore. I'll say when I have too many things on my plate and I get very overwhelmed, which is something, I do have a lot of things going on. They're all good things, but I do take on a lot of work in different capacities. And so that can look and feel in different ways. But I think in general, when you feel like you've done everything you could and the situation isn't changing, that's when you know it's time for a change. I've always felt so good. I feel so good now looking back at my whole career and saying, I did everything I could at every step of the way to push this as far forward as I could have. I'm leaving with no regrets. That's an incredible feeling for me to have. Looking back now, if someone looks back and they do have regrets, like consider why and take that experience forward. But I think that that's just so important. And to also see, like, create these markers in the sand for yourself. Like, I'm in this moment. This is my 4th week working 80-hour weeks. How does that feel to me? What am I giving up by doing that? Am I okay with that? Am I okay with this concept of working? I'm picking on this 80-hour week person, but maybe you're listening. I don't know. They're probably working. Am I okay with working 80 hours a week for a potential payoff in the future? That's, you know, these are all conversations that we need to be having with ourselves, and having these check-ins and conversations. It doesn't need to be something crazy. I think it could be as simple as like having a notes app on your phone and just doing a quick, like, 3-question check-in with yourself. Like, is this okay? Am I getting what I want? Because if you're not, then you again have all the power to start making the changes to get to the life that you do want to have.
Yeah, great advice. So, and I want to go to one thing that I see you talk about a lot is pivoting in your career, which is really right in what we're talking about now. But at some point you realize I need to pivot. So what does that mean, and how do you do that?
Yeah, I love this because I feel like I've had such a different perspective over it. And I think it kind of goes back to your first question, which was like, what did I want to be when I grew up? And I never really knew. I didn't know what I wanted. I knew that I was really ambitious, but I didn't know what ambition even meant, or what it could look like, or what I wanted it to look like. And so I've been fortunate to have different experiences throughout my life that I've always just said, like, oh, let's try it. So I was doing my undergrad, and somebody I knew was in this weird club called Concrete Canoe, and I was like, that sounds ridiculous. Let's do it. Yeah. And so I got super involved in that in my undergrad, and then that taught me so many different skills that were just like wild and crazy, and things that I still use to this day. Like, the ability to motivate somebody is like one of the biggest, I think, skill sets that you can learn, which I learned entirely from Concrete Canoe. Was like, how can I make someone lock arms with me towards a goal? That is cool. And then you build a concrete canoe.
Yeah.
And so I think by being able to just take these interests that I've had and just like following them, so one step to the next step to the next step to the next step, and while I'm pointing as almost like an upward ladder, it hasn't really been a ladder. It's been more of like outward circles of like creating different skill sets for myself. And so I never actually thought about my career as career pivots. I just took them as like, this is the next stage in my evolution of who is Stefanie in the corporate world, and who is Stefanie as like making money out in the world. Like, who is she? What does she do? And she's collecting skills that interest her. And so that was, working as an APM and being like, okay, I don't like the PM role because of these different reasons. Let's go into virtual design and construction. What does that look like? What does starting a team from scratch look like? How does it look like going to an owner and explaining these services and having them agree to pay for these services, and then executing on those services? Like, what does that whole workflow look like? Now, when I decided to take a step away from construction, again, it was entirely driven by becoming a new mom. That pause really made me rethink what my career looked like and say, construction and engineering, I thought were my two options. In school, the smart kids went to engineering, the rebels went to construction.
This is the AEC podcast, so.
I know. You guys are all smart and wonderful. I think it's valid though as a conversation topic. Like, it is the AEC podcast. However, there is a lot more to A to E to C. Like, there's a lot more to those letters. And I think when you go to school, that's what they tell you, that you can either do engineering, whatever engineering is, which now I know is like 100 different options. But at the time, it was engineering was what was in my head was I would be designing bathroom stalls. That was what I had, like, that was in my mind what engineers did.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I don't know. It was either that or designing one beam for the rest of my life. Like, I couldn't look past those two options. And maybe that was me. Maybe that was the way it was presented to me in school. Construction was kind of places like the Rebels. That's where the Rebels go. I know a lot of really great students that went into construction, so please nobody take offense. But I found myself only a couple years into my career, I had done both. And I didn't see a path for myself in either. And then suddenly it was like, well, I'm too young to retire, so what do I do? And so that kind of caused this whole new, like, kind of ripple in my own journey, which was like, what would it look like if I did something totally different, but that still leveraged all the experience that I did have? Because I didn't want to go to school and be a vet. So what can I do as a professional civil engineer, leveraging that, but in a way that makes sense with what I'm currently looking for in my life, that aligns with my values? And that ultimately was what my biggest pivot was, which, and now name it as such, because I think it's easier for people to grasp when you say, like, I made a career pivot, as opposed to being like, I went on a journey and now I work in tech. So hopefully that kind of helps describe a little bit more about what the pivot has been like for me.
Yeah, it does. And I mean, no offense. I obviously it was a funny thing, but obviously the caricature of the engineer and the contractor, we built on that. But thanks for sharing about your career pivot. And then, so you've pivoted into your current role. What is it about this current role that you just, because I did see that huge pivot that you described at the very beginning of this episode, which is the stress and then the stress-free. And it seems like it's just awesome. So like, tell me about that. What was it about that that's so great for you?
Sure. So I currently work as a customer success manager for a little company called Bluebeam, which maybe some people have heard of, maybe not. And if you want to see me live and in action, I do tips and tricks sessions every other month. So those are fun. I think people are always kind of surprised when it's me, and it's like, there I am. So I think for me, it was the ability to take everything that I loved about previous roles, which was like working with people and helping solve problems, and being able to do that in a way that also aligned with what I needed in my life. Specifically, the ability to work remote was really, really important to me. I still work remote. I still really love it. I also understand the importance and the value of being in person. So I think that's been kind of interesting for me to grapple with, like, as I've been working remote almost for 4 years now. It's really great when we get together and meet and have those in-person connections. But it also does make life also easier working remote. So that's kind of been my own experience. I think there's just a lot less stress at times, or generally, I would say, especially like having super tight timelines, different things that I had to deal with in both engineering and construction that kind of don't exist, at least in my current role.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, so you mentioned Bluebeam. I mean, since we brought that up, what is this Bluebeam for people that don't know? And can you share a little bit about that? I mean, Like
Sure.
what is this program?
Yeah, sure. Love the opening. Well, I'll share that I was a user before I was an employee. So for me, it kind of feels like I work at any of your favorite brands. That's kind of how I feel every day at work. But Bluebeam is a PDF software solution. So if you ever need to mark up a drawing, if you're doing it with a highlighter or pencil, whatever those things are, instead of doing it that way and then having to give someone your hieroglyphics, pencil, Andy held up a pencil if you're not watching the video. If you ever have to mark up anything, then you can do that digitally, easily share it. You can collaborate with other people on it. There's a bunch of different tips and tricks in there. I'm really giving a very high level overview, but it was made for AEC, so that's the really cool AECO. So yeah, that's Bluebeam. You should definitely go check it out. And like I said, if you're interested, those tips and tricks sessions are one of my favorite things I get to do on the job. So you should come check it out.
Yeah, maybe they can sponsor this podcast episode.
Yeah.
But
no,
no, I'm just kidding. But anyway, no, it's a great tool. I mean, I use it all the time. And I mean, speaking of 4 years ago, it's about when I first started using Bluebeam, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I think I did a lot of markups with red lines. And I would write this stuff out and then scan it in. And we were a remote company even then, and I would just scan it in on an 11 by 17 scanner. I mean, so
wow.
That's old school, but that's how we did it, 4 or 5 years ago even. And then my team said, Andy, your handwriting's not that great. So we need help, And so that really has made, and I found that I'm a lot more efficient with it now. Maybe I need to come to those tips and tricks sessions and learn, because it's more than just a red line tool. I mean, you can do so much with it. I mean, in terms of, like, we have one guy, he's using, you can take some of the information of a beam and export that into an Excel spreadsheet. I know a lot of people use it for takeoffs and so forth, and then he can put it into an Excel spreadsheet, and he's got this like beam tool. So it's basically taking that data and designing beams from it. I mean, it's like you said, more than that, but it's actually pretty neat to see the technology and how it can help you get ahead. But I just thought it might be good to introduce that, because I think a lot of people here may not know what it is, and architects, engineers, or contractors that might benefit from that. So check out Stefanie on her tips and tricks too.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a super cool role. Like I said, I was a user myself, and I remember when I joined, I was like, oh yeah, I'm a power user, and I still learn new things every single day. So it's really, really humbling, and it's really exciting. And I often hear like, I'm just scratching the surface, and I think the ability to help people scratch just a little bit more, like being able to show something cool in like a quick tips and tricks session, and then being like so mind blown, is the coolest feeling. So
yeah, awesome. Well, you're in the tech field, and so what is your take on some of the trends going on in tech right now, and what's the next big thing that's coming up?
Oh boy, these are some big questions. Not sure I'm fully capable of fully answering all that, but I mean, I'd be remiss to not throw our everyone's two favorite letters around. AI is obviously making such a big splash and such a big impact in the industry, and I think more than anything, no one really knows how it will all shake out. Is this an AI bubble? What will the next 10 years look like? What I will say is, I was at a conference recently, and people are still using paper pen workflows. So I'm curious to see whether the paper pen folks will skip over digitalization and go right to AI, or will it be an intermediary step, and in 30 years we'll all still be talking about how construction, or mostly construction, is still behind. So I do think that's really interesting. I think for anyone who's listening who is just generally worried about their career, I would say like the time is now to get on one of these apps, whether that be ChatGPT or Claude or something else, and just start to explore and see what's possible. I think it's a really exciting time. I think very often interns, for example, are very afraid of what they're able to contribute to companies. And I think now more than ever, like interns have such a cool place to be. You can come in, see a problem, you can get on ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, create this whole new workflow, and like what an impact you can make to companies. So I hope that that actually happens, and that like the younger generation is really able to take that and run with it. I know that for myself, for AC Tech jobs, for the work that I do, AI has played such a massive impact in my ability to execute work faster, more accurately. And so I do think that that's really cool. The barrier to entry is low, or $20 a month. So I definitely think it's one of those tools that are definitely worthwhile putting together. Anecdotally, I ran a challenge 6-ish months ago on helping people pivot their career. The goal was, can we get one person to have an interview within 2 weeks? And it was a group of about 7 folks, and we were able to get 2 people 2 interviews. So one interview each. And I've been kind of toying around with that challenge for months, thinking like that was really cool, but I don't have the capacity to just run these all the time. And I actually was able to vibe code an app that did it, and it's live right now, and people are kind of beta testing it, and it's really cool, like what we're able to do now as civil engineers. Like I took a C++ class in college and did terrible, and here I am, like I have a whole app set up that is like up and running. So it's a really exciting time, and I personally try to really focus on the excitement of all of it as opposed to the doom and gloom, which I think enough other people are focusing on. So
yeah, I think it's I think certainly who knows what's going to happen in that regard. I mean, and it could be bad, I don't know, but in the meantime, I'm like you, I'm going to experiment, I'm going to try things out. And like we have I've got one engineer that he's really into the AI and really into this stuff, and so we have these little sessions. We try to have them like Fridays usually, and we just spend about an hour or maybe 2 hours, and we just have fun. And he's like, hey, do this, like, let me show you this, and he'll say like, connect Claude to your email. And it's scary to do that, right? Because you're like, wow, Claude has my email now, but or that's just an example. And so you can check your email from Claude, and it's like my EA. I mean, I have an executive assistant, but it's just showing you ideas that you can do. And then it's kind of like what you talked about earlier, because these little talents, I've heard it called talent stacking. It's like these little talents that you learn, and you might be able to, it may connect the dots in some weird way that you don't realize. Like doing the concrete canoe helped you somehow what you're doing now, right? And these little, and so in a unique way that only Stefanie has that talent stack, right?
Yeah.
And so just AI is just another part of that talent stack, and what can you do to really build into that? And like this, this is something I like to do. I like to sketch, and I don't know how that would help me with my career, but maybe it will one day. I don't know. It kind of like was fun to just draw that up for you. So this is a reason why you need to watch the YouTube. You can see the sketch that I did, and you can see Stefanie and I talking on YouTube. Of course, we do your favorite player, of course, whatever you're listening to, but we also have a YouTube component. But awesome. So speaking of this sketch, this is your beaver, and we talked about it a little bit before, but what so like this merchandise that you've created, what does it mean to you? And like, what's the next thing for More Than an Engineer?
I love it. What does merchandise mean to me? I think I've always appreciated having some type of community in different aspects of life. And I think that when I kind of considered what am I really doing on LinkedIn and like what does that look like, I really loved the idea. And I always kind of go back to this myself of like, I want to be able to walk through the airport and know that that person is also more than an engineer. And so I think it's always been fun. Like, this is not like my main income stream, if you will. The hats was really a fun side project, that when you get a little bit of money in your business, then it's fun to reinvest it and do something fun with it, to a certain degree. And so I think there's always been kind of that idea of like, wouldn't it be really cool if I was walking around and someone was like also wearing their More Than an Engineer stuff. I'll give a shout out to AJ Walters, who showed up to Con Expo, and we were planning on catching up, but I caught him walking the expo floor and he was wearing his More Than an Engineer shirt. So
wow, that's super cool.
Yeah, which was like that first time I feel like I really got to have that experience of just like seeing it in the wild. So I think it's really cool. I think whenever you put something out there, it's obviously scary, and cringy and everything, any feeling that you feel, like it has definitely felt very cringy at times to be like, why would anyone wear that? But people bought it, and I'm immensely grateful. And so I think it's always just been partially fun, partially people who like just want to support that, who see themselves in the message. I think that has been really exciting. Obviously, like More Than an Engineer means a lot to me, and kind of my own evolution of my own career and just journey on life itself. But then to see other people take that and make it their own has been super, super cool. And so I think like just having, for me, the More Than an Engineer has been almost permission to be more than what your degree has been what you thought was the barriers of your career. And so for me, it is like the foundation of everything else I do, is you can do whatever you want because you're more than an engineer. Don't argue with me on it. You are. And so that has always just been really important. Personally, I have a toddler, and he's obviously been along for the ride on me getting the hats made and the sweaters made. And a couple weeks ago in the car, I was dropping him off at school, and we saw some construction happening on the side of the road, and he said something that piqued my interest in terms of the work they were doing. And I was like, how do you know that? And he's like, because I'm an engineer. And I was like, okay, cool. And then he stopped himself and said, no, I'm more than an engineer. And I was like, cool. We're gonna be okay, awesome, kid. And so, yeah, I think that like in a nutshell is really where the importance of it is for me. Is I've always felt really limited in what I thought was success and what I thought was a successful career and what an employee should be. And I've always struggled with these definitions that were really imposed on me. And so for me, More Than an Engineer has always been kind of my ability to break free of whatever society has tried to push on me. Yeah,
that's awesome. What's the most interesting thing somebody said to you about like your hat or your shirt that More Than an Engineer merchandise?
The most interesting? I don't know if it's the most interesting, but I make a joke that I'm contractually obligated to wear my sweaters at the airport, which I'm not. but I like to think I am. And I had like someone just a stranger at TSA make a comment and ask how he can buy it because he's also an engineer and he thought it was super cool. And yeah, it was, I hope whoever you are out there, you found the sweater. But yeah, no, I think it's really cool to be able to see like the in-person reaction to it, because a lot of it is like posting stuff on LinkedIn and people have purchased it, and sometimes I get a picture, which I always love. Someone took the hat to a taping of, I believe it was Jimmy Kimmel, and then other people went hiking. They've been given as gifts, they've been given as corporate gifts. Like, I feel like they've all just like every hat has had a life of its own, which is super exciting. But I think the in-person stuff is always kind of the coolest. So
yeah, so it means I'm glad that you shared that. It seemed like it was tied to the idea of pivoting, but it's not. It's more than that. It's about anybody that's an engineer. We're all more than an engineer, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't think it's tied to the pivot at all. I think it's the permission to be more, and whatever your definition of more is, whether that's a different career pivot, maybe it's, just being more in your current role, being a better communicator, maybe after this episode, because you're more than an engineer. You don't just have to engineer. If that's not all you want to do, you also can do more. So
yeah, well, and also I'm looking at the image of, it's got you with all the different roles of your life too. I forgot what they're called, the pacifier and a computer. Yes. And I don't know, it looks like maybe some sweet tea or something.
It's my sourdough starter.
Oh, okay. I guess you're from the north, so you're probably more unsweet tea, but. So sourdough,
yes.
You do sourdough.
It was a sourdough starter. Yeah, I think when we were trying to figure out what the image should be, it felt like it needed to be a true representation of like the things that I personally am balancing or kind of working through. Obviously, there's only 4 because the arm with 6 was a little creepy looking. But yeah. I did have a mock-up of the 6. And so I kind of wanted to toy around with, like, obviously I'm a mom. A lot of my identity and the things that that are part of my life are revolving around that. And so while he doesn't use the pacifier anymore, that is a good way to symbolize that. But I think it's my sourdough starter and then a computer and maybe a hard hat, or I think we're the 4 we went with. But
yeah, I love that. I mean, it shows you're more than an engineer. You have multiple not personalities, but multiple dimensions to your life, and so that's really cool. And I mean, since we're architects, contractors, maybe you could make a one that says, more than an architect or more than a contractor. I mean, have you thought about how these concepts apply to other aspects of the AEC industry?
Yeah, I definitely have. It's funny because when I made the hat for just myself, that was the first thing everyone said to me, was like all the different options of like what I could go with. And then one of the ideas that I actually liked best was more than and then just like a blank line. So that way it's inclusive to everyone. I don't know. I don't have the trademark on all the other ones, so maybe someone else wants to go and scoop those up. But I think it's hard. There's, of course, like, you could probably start a whole apparel line here, but that's not really what I'm trying to do or build. Yeah. I think there's lots of other cool things where my talents lie better. I think it's really exciting to be able to have partnered with RFI Outfitters on that, because they actually take care of all the fulfillment. All the work is really on them, and we just partner on the slogan, which is super, super cool. And they're doing all kinds of cool stuff, so definitely worthwhile checking them out. But I think it would be a bit of a departure for me to do a bit of a more than an architect, but everyone's more than whatever they think.
Yeah. Well, the concept though of
Yeah.
everything that we've talked about with pivoting and being more than just, what your degree is or whatever. Would you say those things apply as well?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. I mean, I think that that's often messaging that I struggle with, because when I say engineer, then maybe that makes the C feel left out. And then if I say contractors or construction, then maybe the architects feel left out. But I think it's definitely true across the whole industry, and probably across other industries as well. I think it's very easy to feel very boxed in by whatever your title is. And for me, this has always given me the permission to step outside of that. So if one day I want to put on my marketing hat, I can, because I'm more than just an engineer. And I don't have to stay in the lane if I don't want to. Which, yeah, like I said, I wish that had been advice that was given to me when I was starting out in my career, when I was in school, because that was certainly not what I was told. I was told engineering is great and just engineer that beam all day long.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's a good summary of how it really applies to everybody. And
Yeah.
So this is the Enhanced Podcast. I think we've really talked a lot about this already, which is, I like to ask people what their why is, in other words, how are you enhancing the world around you? And I mean, I hear it throughout the whole episode already, but is there anything else you want to add to what we've talked about today in terms of how are you, because I like to think that we're doing something more than just stacking bricks, right? And we're building something important, albeit maybe through Bluebeam or through your More Than Engineer or your mentoring. But why do you do all this is really what the question is.
Such a great question that I struggle with often. I think a lot of it really stems from the fact that it's pieces of advice that I never heard. Whether that was growing up, whether that was in school, whether that was in my early career, I feel like I've had to learn a lot of things on my own, that I sometimes wish, why wasn't there an opportunity for someone to share that with me so that lessons would be easier? I also think representation really matters. So I think it's important for other women to see a woman doing this kind of thing. And I'd like to think that in that regard, I'm making a difference, because I know who I was exposed to when I was in need of, whether it was mentorship or inspiration or whatever the case was, and I never saw myself in them. I was never really inspired by the people that I came in touch with. I'm not saying that I'm the epitome of inspiration. I'm certainly not, and I'm certainly still trying to figure it out. But I do think that there is something important about being a human and being an engineer and being a mother and showing people that you can figure it out. And sometimes when a stranger tells you, like, you're doing great, just keep going, like, you can do this, I think that's really, really important. And I think if with the platform that I've been really blessed with, like, if I'm able to be that person to somebody who's having a really hard time in their career or their life or whatever the situation might be, and I'm able to say, like, you've got it, like, you can do it, just keep doing it, let's have a conversation, let's figure it out. Like, that is such a blessing and such an honor for me to be part of people's journeys in that regard. I'm obviously always still trying to balance all that with my own life, and so I'm always trying to figure out, like, how can we make things scalable and helpful and have resources out there for people, because people have resonated with this message, and so how can I keep giving back to that? So a very long-winded answer, but hopefully that all makes sense.
No, it does. I mean, that's really awesome that you're giving back, you're providing this mentorship, you're sharing just through right now, through this episode, and also on social media, LinkedIn. I see you there a lot. So yeah, and also providing that encouragement to other ladies and other engineers, and men too, but just people that are struggling. And it's so awesome that you're doing that. So I wish that I had you when I was starting out, but we didn't have LinkedIn back then, but we do now. And so I read your stuff and I am encouraged by it, because sometimes I'm like, well, maybe I should pivot, my career. So I think about it sometimes, and so that's really good. I mean, I think keep doing it and keep sharing that information and providing encouragement to everybody.
Well, I appreciate it. I will argue with you and say that you have pivoted, because you used to not be, hosting podcasts, and
Sure.
now you are. And I'm sure a lot of that came with a lot of fear and a lot of, who will listen and who will this and who will want to join. Like, I'm sure that there are so many pieces of that now feel normal to you. But I think that it is important, even just the representation in engineering podcasts. Like, there aren't a lot of them, and I think when you see somebody else do it before you, it makes it way less scary. So people see me, a engineer that transitioned to tech, and they're like, cool, she did it, so I can do it too. And so I think that just in and of itself gives so much more confidence than we sometimes really give credit to.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have to just get out there and do it. It is cringe, isn't it, when you get started?
It is, and I remember that place where I was so terrified to hit post on my first piece of content, and now if I don't feel cringy, then I know I'm not doing it right. So I've come to really love it. Like, sometimes this week I post stuff on LinkedIn and things are not looking great, and that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
That's
so true.
right.
I mean, it's so funny that you say that, and I have to be at like a certain place to prepare my work, and some days what I wrote, because I usually batch my stuff, and so what I wrote like 3 or 4 days ago, I'm like, I don't feel that today, and then I know that's what I need to post that day, because it's just, that's real. And some days I change it or whatever, but I'm with you there. I think that a lot of times when we feel that cringe is almost like the best content, So it's weird. And some people might be like, yeah, because it is cringy. But I think the value though is what you were describing, which is it's not the cringe to be cringe. It's because we want to share these important things. We want to be real, and we don't want to just say, hey, we're making all this money and we're doing all these great things. Sometimes you want to do that and pump yourself up, because nobody's going to pump you up. Nobody's going to pump me up. I mean, we have to do it ourselves, I mean, I'm trying to give you a little bit of pump up today, but
it's working. I feel great.
Yeah, but I mean, really, we have to do it ourselves, and how do you feel about that in terms of the message that you share with the people that you work with? Do you feel like they should be posting and highlighting themselves?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see more people post content on LinkedIn. I do realize that it feels really weird. And I think that sometimes if you don't really have a goal and it just feels really cringy and hard, I think there's other ways to be active on LinkedIn. I think commenting on people's stuff is like super under indexed. Like, that's huge for visibility without you trying to come up with original content. I will say that, like anything, you just have to get the train rolling. That's how I think of a lot of things myself. I call it my momentum train. So I've been riding my same momentum train for like 2 years now, which feels great. But whenever I feel a lull in not wanting to post or not wanting to do something, I remind myself that I'm on my momentum train and I can't stop it, because once I stop it, I will have to restart the engines, and I don't want to do that. And so I think for other people, whatever that momentum train looks like for you, I certainly don't want to give advice of like everyone should post content and like good things will happen. I do think that's the case, but it doesn't just happen. Like, it takes time to figure out what people are interested in and then giving people what they're interested in. Like, I have tried to write posts about other things and people just don't want that from me, and that's okay. But I think that if you want to do something, you can do it, of course, because you're more than an engineer. But yeah, I very rarely give people the advice of like, you should start posting content, because it's hard. I have had a lot of people over the years be like, I want to post content and be consistent, and then it kind of drops off after a week or two. It's hard to stay consistent, so I get that.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. So, well, Stefanie, it's been an awesome episode with you today, and I just enjoyed having you on. I do want to, since we talked about these different social medias and different places to find you, but just want to reiterate, if you could just share, how do people find you? What are your different things? You have a lot of things going on, but share, with those things again, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah. I guess the best place to reach out is through LinkedIn. And send me a DM. Tell me what you thought about this episode. If you want to see me live and in action at Bluebeam, I host tips and tricks every other month. And the best way to find those would be look up Bluebeam live webinars, and you'll see tips and tricks. And there's usually a picture of my face there, so you'll know that it's one of my sessions. But you can join any of them. They're all fantastic. And then if you are interested maybe in a role in AEC Tech, then check out aectechjobs.com and let me know if you have any feedback on that website too. So
yeah, awesome.
And then I guess if you want a More Than an Engineer sweatshirt, because we talked about that so much, maybe we'll put that in the show notes.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, so
yeah, we definitely need to do that. So anything else you want to talk about or mention today? We've been here a while. You've been very patient with your time and generous with your time, but is there anything else you want to leave us with today?
Maybe I'll leave with one last piece of advice that I learned 7-8 months ago, which was everyone puts their pants on one leg at a time. So if there's something that feels scary, someone you want to reach out to that feels scary, like, everyone's a human. The worst that happens is they say no, but everyone's a human putting on their pants one leg at a time. So just be you and go for it.
Yeah, awesome advice. A lot of great information here today. So thanks, Stefanie. Take care. Everybody, like our stuff. Take care.
Thank you, Andy.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to today's episode of Enhance. And please leave a like, a subscribe, or a follow, and we'll see you next time.